looking at your face, you want to make sure that you let your jaw drop and your cheeks flap. Remember, a relaxed face is the first domino in the chain for an efficient, relaxed stride. Make sure you keep your eyes ahead, and which will maintain a proper form, and you'll avoid straining your neck. And if you look at your face, you kind of keep your jaw open at the same. Make sure you just let it. Remember to let it kind of flap around, make it relaxed. It looks a little forced here, but other than that, it's just a small change. When we look at your head position, we try to see where you're looking for, forward. You want to stay 10 to 12 yards in front of you, but you also don't want to be buried into your chest or so far back that your chest, you're leaning backwards. You want to find that middle ground, which is around 10 to 12 yards in front of you, roughly about 3 to 4 meters. And looking at your position, you are exactly where you need to be. I would say look a little bit further down, and I can drag it a little bit further down like that, which will help with your forward lean a little bit, so you're not collapsing and coming straight down on your rear foot, as you can see kind of right there when you're coming down. So a little bit forward lean, and which will help with your head position going forward a little bit. Now we're looking at your torso forward lean. We're looking at the posture, the forward lean, measuring it to see where you are. Remember, you either don't want to lean too far forward or you don't want to lean too far back. And if you're leaning too far forward, that means you're overstriding or understriding. And if you're leaning too far back, it tends to lead to overstriding, if that makes sense. Ideally, you want to be in a 5 to 9 degree range. When I speed up your lean here, you can see at the 90 degrees, you're around 23 degrees, which means you might be bending more from the hip than the actual ankles, which is where you want to be. When you come back on the left side, I can't remember if you're left-handed or right-handed, but you're around the 13 degrees. So when you're coming up a little bit, but you might be overstriding with your right foot, which is causing, as you can see again, as I draw a quick circle, you're landing with almost with your rear foot. So make sure you're leaning from the ankles and not from the waist. And if you still feel like you're overstriding or understriding, lengthen your stride a little bit. Maintain that forward lean position. Looking at the side view for your arms, roughly you want to stay in the 80 to 90 degree angle range. Looking at yours, you tend to run with your arms a little open. Now 113 is not exact, as you can see, but it's pretty close. And as you move forward, you start to bend your angle a little bit more. Now right there may not be 90 degrees, but you might be in 100 degrees, and it looks close. But see here at 104. And then quickly to the eye, it looks like you are at 90. Again, you shorten it up again, closer to 99. So make sure you keep your arms bent to 80 to 90 degrees. It's almost better to have them a little bit, closer to 70 degrees than having it at 100 degrees, because you're just dragging your arms essentially. Just keep that angle degree in mind when you're running. Again, your form doesn't look so bad. But you're still roughly a little out of that range for the 80 to 90 degrees. I would say the next time we do our run analysis, make sure you wear slightly tighter clothing, closer to maybe a black compression top or short sleeves, so we can get a better idea of what your angle is. But make sure you keep your angles a little bit leaner for your running form. Here we're going to look at your knee range as well as your hips to knees. First, starting with your knees, you ideally want to be less than 90 degrees. And to do that, you want to be driving with your knee. Most people run, they drive with their legs or their feet. And that's why you find a little laggish running as far as your foot coming down before your toe, the heel rather, coming down before your midfoot or toe. So on your stride, you can see that your knee is bent at around 112 to 111 degrees. And you want to keep that ideally in the less than 90 degree range. Now, when we look at your knee landing, you can see where your knee is right there. You're around 19 degrees. And because where your ear is, or your hips, you're ideally landing where you should be in your left foot. But your right foot is not doing that as such. Now, when we look at your knee range, or rather your hip or leg extension, that's with the leg behind you. This is your right leg. You can see you're at 28 degrees, and we want to see 24 to 30. Now, remember, if you're less than that, I think you're getting close to that too. And this is just a rough estimate, which means you're getting a little bit too vertical and you have tight hip flexors. Now, we measure this off the toe off position, so we could be closer to here, but I measured it from there. So you're around 28 degrees, but I believe you might be a little bit less than that on the other side of your running. Just remember to really stretch your hip flexors and not focus so much on bouncing, more going going horizontal rather than vertical when you're running. Finishing up with looking at your running form, I want to quickly address your feet positioning and just your stride length. And as we look at the final clip of your running form, you can see your foot should land roughly where that line's drawn, which means that you're bending a little bit too far forward from the waist and not enough from the ankles, essentially, which is why you're landing on the heel. And that could be the difference of yourself slowing yourself down, a little bit, which adds up to a lot for a half Ironman race, which is what you're training for. When you're 4 or 5 hours into your race, the last thing you want to be worrying about is becoming lazy with your running form. And I'm not saying that you're lazy here, but when you're 4 or 5 hours into your race, these little breaks that you're putting on when you're running is going to hurt tremendously when you have to come to the finish line of that half Ironman. So focus on better forward lean positioning that we've talked about before, and make sure that foot's landing actually more under you. Because if you actually looked down at this point in your running strat, you should be able to see your foot, and that's not what you want to be seeing. Remember, lead with your knees going out and up rather than with your feet.